I think you guys all know yesterday Penn State Health issued a statement rejecting Dr. Lynch's claims. We'll continue to vigorously defend our program and all its participants in this manner. As always, the health and well-being of our student athletes is of utmost importance to us. But after that, we'll have no further comments. So I just want to make sure we covered that.
We'll start with Rich Garcelle and the Ready Eagle.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Rich.
What was the deciding factor or factors in naming Sean Clifford the starter, and how did Will Levis handle the decision?
Yeah, Will handles everything extremely well. Mom and Dad were really good about it too. I mean, obviously disappointed. You want to be starting quarterback, I get that, but handled it extremely well. I think it really comes down to a lot of things. I think obviously consistency. For us, very similar to when we named Trace the starting quarterback. The experience factored in. You got an older guy who played in games and really had competed like crazy and done everything that he needed to do from the time the season ended. But Will did as well, and we think Will's very, very talented and got a very, very bright future. But I think when it's close like that, you're always going to go with the older, more experienced player, and that's really what Sean is, and has done a great job. So both of those guys have earned all the coaches' respect. Obviously, he's also earned all the players' respect, and then obviously you see Sean was also voted as a captain. So all those things kind of factor into it.
Derek LeVar, Wilkes-Barre Times leader.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Derek. How are you?
Good. Just sort of building off that, James, as a coach, how do you handle the aftermath of a quarterback decision? You talked about Will handled it pretty well, but we're seeing across the country QBs looking to transfer less than 24 hours after Team Famous starter. So how did you approach that with Will, and was your approach any different now maybe than it was even 3 years ago with Trace and Tommy?
No, really no different. Where we are probably different at the quarterback position than we are at other positions is we'll bring those guys into my office. So me and the offensive coordinator will bring them in, tell them the decision that's been made, why the decision has been made. That's how I've done it for 9 years. And see if there's any questions. And then kind of keep it moving, and then we usually tell the one guy, and then we ask them to keep it quiet because we don't want guys to hear about it before we've had a chance to talk to them. And based on academic schedules and things like that, sometimes you can't meet with them right after one another. So meet with both of them, and then and then obviously let the team know. Because same thing, I really don't like the team as a whole or players individually to find out things. Online, through the media, through social media, whatever it is, before they've heard it from us. And we try to kind of have that process that the family, hears these decisions first before it's announced publicly. So yeah, that's how we've handled it. We've handled it that way for 9 years. For the most part, it's again, it's never an easy conversation to have, and there's disappointment. But for the most part, it's gone as well as you could expect.
Frank Bodani, your Daily Record.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Frank. How are you?
Good, real good. I wanted to ask you about your offensive line. What is the next step, you think, in the development of that group from the end of last year to now? What did you see in preseason camp that stood out to you about your line?
Yeah, I think obviously it's building confidence. Number one, I think going against our defensive line and our defensive ends every single day is something that we really embrace. The iron sharpens iron mentality. Going against Vitor Gross-Matos and going against Shaka Tony and Shane Simmons and Jason Oweh and so on and so forth. I mean, we can list out a bunch of guys. We've got so many guys, that are playing at such a high level, at the defensive end position. Daniel Joseph as well. We're excited about Adisa Isaac. All those things are really valuable. I can't imagine we're going to see a better defensive end group in the country. And then I think the other thing is the way our defense plays in practice, how much blitz and pressure. It's a fine line as a coach because You want to build that confidence, but you also want to be able to go against, really challenging situations to force growth. But there's a fine line in that, and I think that's kind of, as the head coach, you kind of balance what's going in per day from an installation standpoint on offense, so our defense isn't seeing unbalanced and empty and all these non-traditional things, early on in camp, and the same thing that our offense isn't seeing every blitz under the sun when you're trying to install base. So I think that's where we all got to work together on that. But I think the biggest thing is instilling confidence in those guys. Continue to build depth. I do think we have a little bit more depth than we've had in the past in terms of guys that we think are game ready. I think we're going to have 3 guards that are going to play. Probably more of a rotation than we've done in the past. Not that necessarily our philosophy has changed, but more we've got 3 guys that we think that need to play. And then the same thing in tackle. 3 tackles that we feel good about as well, that those guys will play. And then hopefully as the season goes on, you feel good about 4 guards and you feel good about 4 tackles, and the same thing at the center position. So hopefully getting Juice Scruggs back here soon will also help with that depth and rotation.
Donnie Collins, Grand Times Tribune.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Hey, Don.
What kind of progress have you seen on special teams during camp with Coach Flory running things for the first time? Is there any specific differences, like coverage teams or kickoff or anything like that, you're particularly happy with so far?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I've seen is, obviously when we hired Joe, we did an analytics study, statistics on the top special teams coordinators in the country, and his name just kept coming up. Then it helped because I've known Joe for 15 plus years. We were roommates at Idaho State with Larry Little, so that helped. It also helped that his wife is a dairy farmer and that he loves fly fishing. And this area is pretty good for fly fishing, so that helped too. But I think the other thing that really jumps out to me is he is a special teams coordinator. He lives it, he sleeps it. Some guys are special teams coordinators, but they would want to be defensive coordinators down the road. Some guys are special teams coordinators, but they want to be head coaches. Some guy, this is who he is. He lives it, he sleeps it, he eats it. He is passionate about it. He's got a plan for it. There is a culture that has been created and established in our program now, and players have bought into it. There's a lot of pride, that we're taking in it. To be honest with you, the schemes, there's some subtle differences, but really I think it's more just about how we meet, how we manage it. We do some unique things with how we meet. And how we sell, the CTG, which is what he calls it, change the game, CTG culture that we have in our program, and I think it's been really good. I know the players are excited about it, the coaches are excited about it. It also helps, that we're not relying on true freshmen. We got an experienced punter, we got an experienced kicker, we got an experienced field goal kicker, and we got some of the best return men in the country, which is also part of it as well. We got the guy running it, and we got the pieces that we need to execute as well. And then I think obviously our speed and athleticism on defense usually also helps to translate on offense, as well as us trying to get more offensive players involved.
Welcome to questions here in the room. Raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you.
Hey, Chris, one more thing. I don't know if I've given you guys, if I give you guys the green list of all the guys that are green lighted, you want that?
Yep.
So I said.
Neil wore green today, just read.
So the guys that we're green lighting right now, again, these things could change. Guys could go from green to yellow or yellow to green, but just green lights from week 1 is Keaton Ellis, is Adisa Isaac, is Lance Dixon, is Brandon Smith, is Caden Wallace, is Noah Kane, is Devin Ford, is Jaquan Brisker, is Jordan Stout, and is Weston Carr, which probably doesn't make sense for him really to be on that list, but they're green light guys.
James, for Lamont Wade, what are the biggest areas of growth and strength that he's shown to put himself in position to start?
I think more than anything, Lamont is confident right now, and I think Lamont is comfortable right now. You know, he has paid his dues. He has overcome adversity. You know, he's always kind of been a playmaker. You know, we've been very pleased with how he's tackled this training camp as well. I think him going up against KJ every single day at practice, I think has been really good for both of those guys. You know, so I think it's you know, he's a year older. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this last time as well. You know, the funny thing is a lot of times, you know, when these guys transfer either to us or away, a lot of times, you know, guys that are coming, you know, like Stout, for example, he's with us. He's doing great right now. Well, is it the new location, or is it just that he's a year older and more mature? And I think that's also a little bit, you know, with Lamont. I think, you know, the amount of pressure that he came into this program with, in terms of how he was recruited and rankings and all those types of things and expectations. I think all that adversity and all those experiences really helped him grow. At the time, you don't probably want to go through it, but I think looking back at us, all of us, you know, we know where we are, who we are, and where we're at in life because of all those experiences. So I just think he's in a really good place. I think, you know, he knows the defense inside and out. He's an experienced guy. He's a mature guy. And I think he's excited and ready to take that next step.
Hey, Coach, how difficult is the wait from maybe the bowl game leading into your first game of the new season, and how do you keep you guys kind of level-headed?
Yeah, I think it's fine. You know, for me, I don't mind it because I got the whole thing mapped out, and I know there's a lot of things that have to get covered. There's so many situations in football. You look at those games last weekend. There's so many situations to get covered, you know, and there's really not enough time in 1 week to cover all those situations. You know, whether it is, you know, the last play of the game when there's no time on the clock and you got to throw the pass and then toss it around with no one coming down with the ball, whatever your term is for that play, that you don't get tackled with the ball in your hands, or whether it's the kickoff return like that at the end of the game from the Miami-Duke game. There's just so many situations to get covered, wet ball, you know, all the things, 4-minute, 2-minute, overtime, you know, making sure your guys really understand all those situations. So for me, you know, it's the right amount of time because we got to get all those things taught, we got to get all those things covered, as well as our base offense and defense. And I think that's a mistake that I think a lot of young coordinators and young head coaches make is if you're not careful, you'll spend all your time working on those things that may or may never show up, you know, during the season. And you know, if you're investing too much time on those things, that you never get good at the things that you need to, your base offense, defense, and special teams. So it's finding the balance of all of that. But I do think we get to a point, you know, in training camp where, you know, they're getting grumpy and, you know, they're sick of going against each other, and the defense knows our cadence and knows our checks, and, you know, the offense has got a good feel of their tells on blitzes, and you just say, okay, you know, we want to you know, line up in Beaver Stadium and play. But we also try to change it up, you know, from practice in the morning to practice in the afternoon, practice in Beaver Stadium during the day, practice in Beaver Stadium at night, taking a break and going to the pool, you know, doing all these different things so it's not monotonous, if that makes sense. And I think we found a pretty good balance of all of that.
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I want to ask you, you mentioned a couple of these players a bit ago. At your star position, you got John Reed, Lamont Wade, Keaton Ellis. Those seem like 3 different types of players and 3 different, you know, body types at that position. What went into the depth chart there, and are you looking for something specific from each of them?
Yeah, you know, I get what you're saying, and you're right from that standpoint, but really in a lot of ways the way they're played, you know, John Reed has played the nickel, so that's part of that star. Keaton is a guy that we would like to grow into that role, but also, depending on how the depth chart completely plays out this week, who's going to go into the corner spot when John Reed goes in, to the star position. And then Lamont, a lot of times when we're in our man coverage scheme and we rotate the safety down, Lamont is that guy that a lot of times is lining up over the slot receiver anyway. So it's very similar to what he does a lot anyway. So that's part of it. And then we also think Lamont's a good blitzer. So it's more that than anything.
Hi, James.
Bob.
I wanted to ask you a question about a Harrisburg High guy that's not named Micah Parsons. It's rare, but Damian Barber, he's on the second team, I think, at nose. Could you just talk about his progress since he's got here, and specifically maybe what you see from him this offseason?
Yeah, so his development, as a football player, has been impressive. You look at the amount of weight that he's put on, learning a new position, gaining confidence in there, the size, the strength, the quickness. He's had a really nice, camp. He really has. He's grown up in a lot of different ways. But I think you're going to see him, factor in. We're in a situation at defensive tackle that we probably haven't been in a couple of years, where you got Windsor and Barber and Hansard. It's a 3 deep that we feel good about with Shelton, Mustipher, and Culpepper. And I think all 6 of those guys, will play. Will play. So that's a pretty good situation to be in. You talk about everybody being 285 pounds or bigger, with 3 guys over 300 pounds, and then the speed and athleticism that we have at defensive end. So it's a nice combination. But yeah, we expect him to have a good year.
Hey, Coach. Can you talk about the challenge of the first game of the season and maybe equate it to last year? You guys got a real challenge out of your first game.
Yeah. So I think again, you look at those games last weekend. They're unpredictable, and in college football we don't have the preseason. That a lot of those kinks get worked out. You're talking about younger players and things like that, and then you're talking about depending on how you're scheduling.
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, are you?
Good. Got Justin Shorter reflected as a first teamer here at receiver. What did he do this offseason, particularly in camp, to make you comfortable in making that choice? And collectively, that receiver room from when Parker got there to where they are now, what are the biggest advancements you've seen?
Yeah, so with Justin, he just continues to get better. We look at his college career, which he told me, and his parents told me, is very similar to his high school career. He's a guy that, just kept getting better and kept getting better. He's had some, in the past, not recently, but in the past, had some injuries that have affected his development and his opportunities, and slowed some of those things down. But I do think Coach Parker's done a fantastic job with that unit, very similar to how Lorig's been on special teams. His confidence, his experience, his knowledge of fundamentals and techniques to give our guys the ability to separate and route running, to be physical perimeter blockers, to understand the scheme and the big picture, so it's not just memorizing routes, they're learning concepts, which I think is always the best way to teach. But I think obviously as you guys know, that position last year, as well as some other positions, maybe didn't play as well as they would have liked. I think those guys are going to have a very, very impressive year based on what Coach Parker's been able to do, but also just, again, those guys are older and more experienced. KJ Hamler had a really good year last year. He's going to be better because of that. Jahan Dotson, same thing. I actually believe the same thing about Shorter. The injuries and the adversity he had to overcome last year, I think is going to help him. Daniel George was able to gain some experience. I think, we're in a situation again, where we got a 2 deep at the very least, and in some positions 3 deep, with Cam Sullivan Brown, that we feel really good about. Dan Chisina, I think, is a guy that's got a lot of buzz on our team right now. And Mac Hippenhammer, I would describe him as he's just a ball player. He's the guy, he goes goes play baseball. Coach Cooper doesn't really know what to expect. Next thing you know, he's starting and playing well for them. We lose him for obviously all spring football for baseball. Coach Parker's never worked with him, doesn't know what to expect, and then he shows up and he's just one of those guys. He understands spacing, he understands, he's got great body control, he's got tremendous ball skills. He's just one of those guys. I can't speak for baseball, but I think he's got a very bright future when it comes to football. I think you guys, I think everybody will be pleased with that group and excited to watch him play.